Hi, I'm Aaron Woland. I'm a principal engineer with the Security Business Group here at Cisco. And I want to talk to you about a new feature for Cisco SecureX called Device Insights. With Device Insights, we're providing a consolidated and agentless view into your endpoint inventory that is provided through connecting to existing sources that you already have in your environment that you're linking into SecureX. Those sources are things like your device managers that you see in this list of sources, right? Sources like AirWatch UEM right, from VMware, Meraki Systems Manager, Jamf Pro, Mobile Iron, Intune, your Cisco Secure Endpoint, formerly known as AMP, Duo Mobile, right? Duo Security from Cisco, Cisco Meraki Systems Manager, which Umbrella Security, and of course, Cisco Secure Endpoint has an advanced search capability that is second to none, known as Orbital. These are examples of the types of sources that we're going to pull details of your endpoint base from, and then combine all that into a single place for you so that you don't have to go to each one of those consoles during an investigation and look for the endpoint details there. Okay, and I'm going to bring in some of this to you. This is all future looking. This is about to be released to the public. We announced it at RSA just recently, and I want to just keep providing some updates to that through our channels and so on. But one of the ideas, and I'll come back and we'll go through some of the searching capability, but I want you to see that we're breaking out the inventory and the details that you're able to provide, and I'll drill in a little bit here. Like when you click on one of these endpoints, right, is you're able to see some summary information that's brought together from all those different sources. And we're device name, where that's located, users that have been on that, which we're going to come back to, the physical and logical addresses that are associated with that device, so MAC addresses and IP addresses. You can see that it has vulnerabilities associated to it, such as this one has one vulnerability on it, Mozilla Firefox. It's running an outdated version of Firefox with 25 CVEs with a CVSS score that is 9.3. It was a very high CVSS score. We should go take care of that. You can see that Windows Security Center is reporting that the firewall is enabled, automatic updates is enabled, antivirus and anti-spyware are enabled, user account controls is not enabled. And we can refresh that information from Orbital Live Query as we're on this page, which I'll go ahead and do right now. You can see that Windows security products that are registered to Windows are the Microsoft Firewall, which is enabled, Microsoft Defender, which is there by default, which is disabled, and Cisco AMP for Endpoints is the registered antivirus product, which is enabled and up to date. Speaking of which, right, Cisco Secure Endpoint, which is what AMP for Endpoints has been rebranded to because we are Cisco and we rebrand everything. We see that the definitions are up to date, that it is not isolated, that Orbital is enabled, and that the endpoint does have compromised artifact on it. And if we wanted to drill in to go do the into the EDR product, which is Cisco Secure Endpoint, right, we can pivot right over to that console, that AMP console in the cloud, by clicking here, go to that console, drill into that, do file or device trajectory, and do that analysis and find that compromised artifact and follow into that. While we were here, this information was just refreshed from an Orbital Live Query right then and there. So we reached into that endpoint, we did that live query, we refreshed this information right from this page. Okay, we see that this endpoint has a number of different sources, right? The sources, remember, the Device Insights itself is agentless. The agents that are on that endpoint, or the sources that we're getting the information from are sources like Duo. Duo, right, has seen this endpoint. So a user has been authenticating to applications, right? And in those SAML authentications, in those single sign-ons into those applications, Duo has gained insights, right, into this endpoint and has seen that disk encryption is on, firewall is on, passwords are set, right? That, you know, the user agents, or which are otherwise known as browsers, oftentimes, it doesn't have to be browsers, it could be apps, right? An app such as could have been AnyConnect, could have been the app. It could have been Outlook. It could have been any other app, but those are known as user agents or browsers sometimes. But those agents have been Chromium and Firefox, and we see that same version of Firefox here that we saw up here that's been vulnerable, right? But we see that Flash and Java have been uninstalled. Now we could drill in more details, go see what Duo knows about this endpoint, and pivot over to that Duo admin panel, right? And we can go do that here just by clicking this link. However, right, we don't have to go to Duo to go see that information because we can bring it centrally to, right, the SOC analyst, right, who's doing this investigation, right, without them having to go to each and every one of these different consoles by bringing this information here in Device Insights. Right? Meraki Systems Manager happens to be the device manager that manages this endpoint, and Systems Manager has tags associated to the endpoint. It has security policies associated to the endpoint. It has geo-compliancy, meaning a policy for where the endpoint must be, and it is compliant to that policy. All that information is listed here, as well as some of the information that we saw at the top. Okay, we've pulled that in. We know when it was last seen by that manager, right? We know Orbital has seen it. We know that there are policies that Umbrella has associated to this endpoint, right? So that the type, you know, Umbrella is using DNS to control what this endpoint and this user is allowed to do. We know that this endpoint is being applied to the high security policy, right? And that Umbrella sees that it is Windows 10 and that it is the high security policy and that it's been using AnyConnect to reach Umbrella. And we could go pivot over to the Umbrella console and go see what types of things that Umbrella sees about this endpoint as well. Again, we have the AMP client, now known as Cisco Secure Endpoint, and we see that the Windows policy is the policy applied to this endpoint and that the group is this production group. Okay, right. We can also then pivot in and see that this same user has also been seen on these other devices, an iOS device, other Windows devices, some Mac devices. We could pivot in to see those other devices that this user has been on. We see that those devices are also in other locations. We see that those devices have, you know, other security products enabled on them. Right. Again, we see that what those devices have been using within Duo, Cisco Secure Client, Umbrella policies. That's a totally different Umbrella policy for that device. See different tags from the security managers that are applied to it. And we also see that the Mac OS is actually out of date on this particular product and that we may want to make sure that that one gets updated. Going back here to the inventory itself, right? We're seeing that the devices are getting classified. They're getting classified by types, right? We could say that, you know, right now I have some filters. I'll go ahead and clear all my filters. We can see that these devices are being classified by types. Those types we're classifying them on. It could be managed and unmanaged. We're classifying based on mobiles. I can go ahead and click even within the graph, and that checks off mobile, which also checks it off on the left-hand side. Kind of like I'm shopping within Amazon. I can also check off things such as show me all of the virtual desktops in the environment that are also running Windows. I could say, you know, things along the lines of show me all of the, I could clear all my filters and say, show me all of the things that are running Orbital. Right? Show me all the things that are running Orbital and Cisco Secure Endpoint. Right? Or show me all of the things that are running Cisco Secure Endpoint but are missing Orbital, right? But that are also running Windows and that's going to show me that these two have failed the install, right? And I can filter on that. Now I can also search for things based on partial matches. So 192 won't show me anything that started with 192.168 and look for these. I'm seeing that out of date, end of life operating system, end of life for the operating system as well, and start to show me all of those devices. I can again search on basically just get a good feel for my entire in actual inventory based on the systems that are connected. What have those systems seen for what's really in my environment? Okay. I can also take a look at those sources that I have, and remember those sources are the systems that I have integrated into SecureX. So again, my AirWatch UEM, my Jamf consoles, my mobile irons, my Intunes, right? And some of them are going to sync. Some of them provide things like webhooks to tell me whenever there's a change in the inventory. I can force synchronizations on those. I could say, I want to sync now. Tell me if there's been any changes with my inventory, or go sync my entire inventory right now. Or I can have those synchronizations be scheduled. I can also just say, just tell me whenever there's a change with that inventory, depending on the type of source. But I can also then have the system inform me about how long is it taking to sync with that source, right? And get a feel for the type of performance that each source is able to provide me, so that I can schedule it more effectively for my own systems. And so that is the gist of device inventory and its current state. I hope that this was able to give you a good, quick, and easy understanding of what's coming, and is currently in a closed beta, and that beta will be opening up, I'm sure, and hopefully answered some questions for you.